Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome. Thank you. Welcome to St. John. My name is Kyle, and I am the director of strange title. I'm the director of finance and faith formation. And you may think those things don't really go together, but they really kind of do, because how we take care of money says a lot about how we live our lives and how we trust in God. So we're delighted to have you here for this conversation this evening. I just do want to let you know that we are going to record for our friends who are not able to make it. I have a couple requests to do that. So hello, this is for you. And we're going to spend the next hour in conversation about nonviolent communication. And you may be wondering what that is. That may be a new term for you. It was certainly a new term for me when I first encountered Dr. Cindy Bigbie's work several years ago, but I have found it personally to be transformative in my relationships, my personal relationships, my professional relationships, how I engage with people in the world. And so eternally grateful for this gift, this new way of speaking and listening to others. And I'm so grateful for my beautiful friend Cindy Bigbie for her wisdom and guidance. I think in this world that's very confusing and busy, it helps to find teachers, helps to find guides, it helps to find wisdom. So wherever you find that, I just say keep walking and listening and learning and trying. So Dr. Cindy Bigbie is a practitioner of nonviolent communication and restorative justice. She founded a group here in town many years ago called Community Connections for troubled teens and youth, to bring them back into connection with themselves and others. She can talk a little bit about her work there and how she's expanded her work, and she has a wonderful new book. She's going to talk a little bit about all of those things with us, and maybe try to get us to practice a little bit, try to get us to try for new things. So hope you all feel safe in this space. You are welcome. You belong here. We're glad you're here. So I'm going to turn it over now to Dr. Cindy Bigbie. Thank you.
So welcome everybody. Usually when I present, I like to have it in circle. It's me that, and this all of this work is about connection, right? And so this to me is not the best way to have connection with folks, but it's where we are, so we're going to make the best of it. I usually start all of my classes, all of my meetings, everything out with something called self-connection practice. It's part of the NVC process. It's really based much in brain research. To just cut to the chase on it, from the time we wake up in the morning to the time we go to bed at night, usually we're externally focused, right? Everything's out there. And then things happen, right? So self-connection practice is a really nice practice to build into your life so that when things are happening, you have much more of an understanding of what is actually going on for you internally. And then you can speak from that place, speak your truth from that place. And all of this will hopefully come a little bit more alive to you as we go through the evening. And I'm going to give you a little taste of NVC. I mean, I almost hate to tell people that I'm doing an hour workshop on NVC because it's impossible, honestly. It's a lifelong journey for me. I teach it because I want to live it as best as possible. And yeah, so it's just a little taste of it. But let's do some self-connection, and we're small enough group that I think we can have everybody check in as long as we keep it super brief and you just kind of follow my lead here, okay? So I invite everyone to close your eyes, and if you're not comfortable closing your eyes, you can just look down at the ground. And just take a breath and allow yourself to settle here in this space. Often when we get quiet, you notice a lot of thinking going on, and it's hard to just leap over the thinking. But I'm going to ask you to try to do that and just rest your attention on your breath, on your body, on internal sensations. Noticing where those internal sensations show up, the quality of the sensations. And then if you were gonna try to bring your thinking mind in here to think about what does it tell you in the way of what you might be feeling right now. And in NVC, we tie feelings to needs, but we don't have to worry about that right now. For now, just what is it that you might be feeling right in this moment? When you're ready, I invite you to open your eyes. And we'll check in. I'll nod, we'll go around and just again, feel free, your name and what you're feeling right now. So I'm Cindy, and when I close my eyes, I have a combination. I pretty much always start out nervous. Doesn't matter how many times I've done this. That is my reality. But I'm also really grateful to have everybody here and to be able to contribute to you. And this is my friend Judy.
I'm Judy, and I'm feeling calm and relaxed. This is my husband, Don.
I'm Don, I'm feeling relaxed and comfortable.
I'm happy, I'm feeling happy. I'm Nancy, I'm feeling interested in curious.
I'm David, feeling relaxed, focused, open.
I'm Kate. I'm feeling a little nervous too, but I'm also feeling really excited and happy.
I'm Brad, and I'm feeling excited, encouraged. I'm Jake, and I'm feeling calm and optimistic. I'm feeling calm and curious.
Good. Here.
Pepper, and I'm feeling anticipatory. I'm Dina, I'm feeling a little anxious, but also expectant and excited about what's to come.
Cool. Thank you.
I'm Betsy, and I'm feeling exhausted.
I'm Nick. I'm feeling tired but joyful.
Last but not least.
I'm Joe. I feel tired. That's feeling grateful.
Thank you, everybody, for just taking a second to let us know where you are in the moment. So I'm going to talk a bit first about my background, what got me here, share a little bit out of the book, and then give you a piece for the so I guess let me talk about the book first. So this book was published this past May. My mother passed away a year ago in May. She came to Tallahassee, she's in South Florida. She came to Tallahassee on April 1st, 2022. She had a pain in her neck. And we thought she had pulled it in Pilates. And we took her into see an orthopedic friend of mine here, and we just thought she had arthritis. Long story short, my mom had stage 4 lung cancer, and she died on May 5th. So it was literally a month from beginning to end. When my mom was dying, she more or less told me to write this book. And I always knew I was going to write this book. I had the name of this book, honest to God, for 25 years. Right? Mildred, my aunt Mildred. Mildred is my mother's grandmother, so my great grandmother. And probably, I don't even know, 25 some odd years ago, I had the epiphany of like, I can trace my crazy. You know, I can trace my crazy. Like, I can see the lineage of like how Mildred came over to the United States and what happened to her, and you know, and then her children and the impact on her kids. And so like I could totally see how the trauma was passed down through the lineage and how it showed up in me on a day-to-day basis and in my interactions. Thus the name, my aunt Mildred. I always knew I was going to write this book, and my mom asked me to do it, so I've done it. And the reason why she asked me to do it is because my mom had been really following my work in nonviolent communication. She happened to be with me a whole lot during the COVID days when I had left the Community Connections Restorative Justice Program right around that time. And I started a business called the Bigbie Method with the vision of scaling up this work, like like truly scaling it as big as I could get it, because there's a lot of conflict in our world, right? And anywhere you go, people really need a different way of how we're moving with conflict. And so there's a lot to the story of how I started my company called the Bigbie Method, but my mom was there a lot, kind of listening in the living room as I was creating a whole bunch of stuff. And we would take walks in the morning, and we were both kind of just in awe of seeing the way our family's trauma was like turning towards the light, so to speak. That the things that I had been learning and then passing along to others was making a very big difference actually between she and I and the way that we had communicated. And when my mom died, and again, it was a month from beginning to end. There was, no stimulus ahead of time. When she died, I have felt so much peace. Like I can't even make sense of it. It's almost like if I needed to see a therapist, it was to see a therapist to understand why am I so okay, right? And I think a lot of it had to do with we had so much closure around a lifetime of trauma, really, because of my ability to communicate and her ability to start to learn. I have a podcast, and I joke that my mom would be the only person to listen to my podcast. She'd be my number one, right? And she did listen to my podcast. And in the last few years before she passed, I started to see a lot of changes just in the way she was approaching communication, right? So she was beginning to learn after many, many years. So that's just a little bit of background on how the book came to be. I also have it picture, I just happen to have it. The day that I published it, actually about 2 days before I published it, I had this, call it what you want, like something was telling me, go visit your mom. She's buried in Oakland Cemetery in Frenchtown. And I went to her grave, and right next to her placard was a little a bud flower getting ready to bloom. There were no flowers in that whole cemetery. Like it wasn't like a thing, you saw flowers. It just happened to be one little bud next to the placard. And then I went home to my husband. I was like, what if I go back in 2 days and it's dead? Like, what am I gonna do? Like, it's a really good sign that there's a flower getting ready to bud, right? We're getting ready to put this book out to the world, right? But no, I went back and it was blooming on the day that I put the book out, which was pretty crazy to me. So, little story, background story. So, prior to starting my business a few years back, I ran the Community Connections Restorative Justice Program here in Tallahassee. I worked with the kids that are in trouble with our legal system, right? And when I first started, I had the vision of teaching nonviolent communication to these kids. And NVC is all about, in a way, power sharing. Right? So my very first day in teaching NVC to these youth, I more or less said, this whole process that I'm about to teach you is it's about sharing power. And it's kind of ironic. You guys are all here and you're probably very unhappy about being here, but you're court ordered to be here. So if you guys don't want to be here, you can leave. And literally every kid in the class got up and walked out. And a few came back because I think they just felt so bad for me, And I remember going home to my husband that night and saying, this isn't gonna work. Like I can't do this, it's not gonna work. And then as has been the pattern, in the middle of the night, I woke up and I thought, you know what, I've taught a lot of people NVC in this community, a lot of adults. What if I call on my village and I ask my village to come in and sit with the kids? And if I get a 1-to-1 ratio of kids to grown-ups, because what we're doing is teaching empathy, literally teaching empathy, right? If I get that 1-to-1, maybe something happens. So I called on my village, sure enough, my village came, and I had a 1-to-1 ratio. And the first time I put everybody into dyads, where one person's listening, the other person's talking and switching. I'm telling you, they literally look different after just 5 minutes of being heard in a particular way. In fact, I've wanted for years to get some neuroscientist to come in there and do some kind of work to know what's actually going on in the brain, because just visually different in 5 minutes of being able to be heard in a particular way. So our groups began to grow tremendously. Like at one point we have 45, 50 people in circle, because what was happening with these kids is that they would come, they'd all be pissed off about being there, and then in a matter of time, they're in a whole different world of being able to be held and heard. And it wasn't just the kids, it was the grown-ups as well. They got to learn it right along with the kids, right? And the kids didn't want to leave. So they would come back to volunteer, and I could never turn any kid away, right? So that's our group began to just grow and grow and grow. That's just some of the background of my time with Community Connections. In the back of this book, the book is basically about my family's historical trauma, and it's about trauma. What is trauma? And it's about nonviolent communication and why I truly believe it is the antidote to trauma and violence. Like everybody knew this and learned it and applied it, we would not be seeing the kinds of things that we're seeing today, right? Because nonviolent communication, by the way, it was Kathy, I think, or somebody beforehand, we were talking about, I'm not violent, or maybe it was Betsy, I don't know, but one of us, we were talking about this ahead of time that, you know, I didn't realize it was violent, right? Martha Rosenberg, who developed NBC, he's basically grew it out of Gandhi's nonviolent movement, right? And he said, anything that separates us from another human being is actually a form of violence. Anything. And as you learn more of NBC, what you'll find is so much of what we say to one another actually has judgment in it without even realizing it. And if most of us have had trauma, which you'll learn if you read the book, 2/3 of us, right? 2/3 of the people sitting in this room right here, it's not those people over there, it's the majority of people. Our brains are now wired to fight, freeze response. So if there's judgment at all, even if it's judgment that you're not marking, fight, flight, freeze is what it's what we're seeing everywhere. We see it in our schools, we're seeing it in our workplaces, we're seeing it in our politics, it's everywhere. That's what is in play right now. But most of us aren't even aware of that, or certainly not able to address it. So I am going to read just a couple of poems from the book. When I was at Community Connections, I used to just pray to have many people sit in circle with the kids, because when you do empathy, which empathy is it's a taught skill, and you would learn it going through an intro to NBC course, right? When you do empathy, you get a level of knowing a person just raw, like that's what that's happening. So the kids and the grown-ups, we all knew each other to at such an intimate level. And I used to think, man, if I could get everybody to sit in circle with these kids and know them the way that I'm knowing them, we would have such an outpouring of support. I mean, because I believe in the goodness of human beings, right? I just know people could sit in circle. And it was so frustrating me not to be able to access that kind of support. When I was writing my book, I decided I would put in my poems that I wrote about the kids. They were never poems that were going to be for other people to read. They were just my way of processing the things that I had witnessed, the things that I had learned on my journey. I would wake up in the morning, roll over in bed, pull my phone, and just start writing like this. And that's how every single one of these came to be. But I want you to have a sense of the trauma that's going on out there, these kids and what's going on with them, just so we can kind of hold them with us here in this space tonight. So there's a bunch, and they're raw and they're hard, and I just want to let people know that ahead, right? And I've changed the names. Jasmine, Metaphorically, will wear the blood-soaked shirt forever. That blood-soaked shirt she wore for 3 days after Jacqueline was shot and killed, right after their fun night at the game. I saw the video posted, 2 bodies down, lights flashing, police assuming the role of medics, God bless them, trying to keep the lights from leaving. Jasmine, all 4'8", watching, hands stretched upright, shaking like an offering of prayer, keeping the blood from dripping deeper into her being, watching as her loved one slipped away. Before that night, I never saw them apart. On that night, I heard she held him in her arms as he bled from the hole in his head. And I know her. She's endured a loving dad who can't help but drop the F-bomb on her and more at a very young age, along with his genuine love and concern. She's endured a loving mom who's also endured tragedy, and I think coped by checking out on drugs. Jasmine's stability was Jacqueline. She wore his blood for 3 full days, refusing to let go of the best love she's known. And like it or not, that blood-drenched garment is an extension of her own skin now. She wore that shirt for 3 days to make sure he would always be a part of her, for good or for bad, together forever. These are kids in our community, and it's not just a few kids. I can't even tell you, it is an epidemic. It's an epidemic. Just one more, there's many. Gil, wrapped in the red, white, and blue, curb stomp. He educated me through this day after delirium of popping 27 pills. We sat in room B, chairs face to face, toes nearly touching. He educated me on things I didn't need to know. Desperation, deep truths never told. Imagine being 5 on an outing with dad and his biker friend, witnessing a curb stomp. Look it up, Google it, Wikipedia, it's a thing, curb stomp. They took some black dude, face down, mouth pried open on the curb, stomped his head in with their boots. He watched. His 5-year-old eyes witnessed. That was Gil's afternoon outing with his daddy. And his daddy loved him so much, proof to this day, the man's cell phone screensaver. He carries a sweet 3-year-old picture of Gil, draped in the red, white, and blue, AK-47 over Gil's shoulder. Put up your hand, Gil. Heil Hitler, Gil. Smile for the camera, Gil. Good boy, Gil. What a sweet picture, Gil. I will carry it forever. So will Gil, in his shaken heart, in his broken soul, as he sits crying, explaining why he's so messy. There was growing up in the crack house too. Hooray for the red, white, and blue. Makes me want to put a flagpole on my front yard, fly the flag at half-mast for an eternity, or at least until the 5-year-old Gil is healed. Amen. Hallelujah. Heil Hitler. It's heaven, you know. And it's what is, right? Be present to it. And I thank you all for coming tonight, because I think you're here because you want an access to a different way, right? You know, this is just the extreme, but we're all dealing with disconnection and lack of peace in different ways in our communications and our interactions, and it starts at that level. All of this starts really at that level. So let's share a little bit of empathy. Let's try to make uplift it here a little bit, okay? Nonviolent communication is it's a process, right? You could choose to use it or not, and it's got all to do with whether you want connection. If you want connection, this is a replicable process that can be learned, taught to build connection, right? Connection is not necessarily an abstract concept. We think of it as an abstract concept. In fact, let's just ask the question, like, how do you know when you have connection? How do you know when you have connection with someone? I would love to hear it. Just put you close. There's no right or wrong. You can feel it. There's something that you feel. Yeah? Okay. It's an energy. Yeah,
It's a shared energy
a shared energy.
and a shared peace and confidence. I think that goes with that.
Yeah, okay.
A shared vulnerability.
An ability to just really be fully who you are with the person. Okay? Yeah, so there's no absolutes. I came up with this definition years ago. I think it kind of takes it in a lot of what everyone said here. Connection is the energy that exists within and between people when they experience being seen, heard, and valued without judgment. Right? So the first part of this, you can't really pin that down so easily, right? The energy within, but you know when you have it. Somebody, several people here said it's an energy. You know when you have it or you don't have it. The second part, being able to be seen, heard, and valued without judgment, that's the part that NVC can actually take and give you processes to replicate over and over again. That's what we're able to do. So just remember this, because a lot of people think that like empathy, connection, those are soft skills. No, what we're able to do now with my company is actually quantify and give you feedback. Can you do this? Do you have this? Do you have the ability? Right? I can actually measure. All right, so let's do a little activity just to give you, again, these are just two of the basic concepts of the NVC. Again, this is a lifelong journey. Even when you take my intro class, which is an 8-week class, and it's about it's an hour of self-paced learning every week and an hour of a Zoom where you're practicing it with other folks, right? Even after 8 weeks, I usually tell people, before you started this, you were, I don't care what kind of degree you have, I don't care what kind of background you have, before you started this, you were unconsciously unskilled, right? Like you didn't even know, oh, there's this thing that I can do and I can do it over, I can learn it, I can apply it, and it will have this outcome for me over and over again, right? Now that you've taken this with me for 8 weeks, you're in a worse place because now you are consciously unskilled, right? Now you know there's this thing like, oh my God, I really want to be able to do this thing. It's amazing. And it's very frustrating because you can't do it yet, right? However many years old you are, that's how you've been acting, you've been interacting, language, your whole life that way. So that does not go, change in a matter of time. You have to stay with it. But personally, I don't know if there's anything more important than knowing how to build connection with people. I don't think there's much else out there, right? Our life depends on it in so many ways. All right, so let's give you a little taste. What I'm going to ask you to do here, I'm going to ask you to think about when somebody does something that triggers you. Okay? What is it that you either think or you say in that moment? Now we're in a chapel. And I've done this activity hundreds of times, literally hundreds of times, with kids. The clue I would always tell people is, the kids would love this activity because they get to put things up on the board that they would never usually get to put up on board. See where I'm going? Somebody cuts you off in traffic. What is the first thing that comes out of your mouth, or at least goes through your mind? A curse word. Yeah. Usually they say the curse word. Okay? We really like the F word. If we're really honest, we really like the F word. Yeah.
You might say, what an idiot.
There you go. That's it. Like that. What an idiot. What else? Any other favorites?
Pardon?
Any other favorites of what, that goes through your mind when you're triggered?
What idiot pretty much covers
When an idiot,
variation.
stupid,
Aware, dumb.
Can you see?
and you say,
What's wrong? Perfect, like.
what's wrong with you? Okay. So you see where we're going, okay? And this is mild. Anyway, again, I did this for teenagers, I learned a lot of words. Yeah, they love it. We're gonna come back to this. So when you get triggered, you're upset, this is what we tend to do, right? Okay. So, and I want you to think about, if you had your most perfect world, right? What would you have in your most perfect world? Now, I'm not talking about, material things. Talking about one word, abstract concepts. What would you have?
Love.
Okay?
Kindness. Peace. Synchrony.
What was that?
Synchrony.
Synchrony. Synchrony. Is that right? Harmony.
Blessing.
Fun.
It's an understanding.
Forgiveness.
Music.
Lives.
What was that? Harmony.
Support.
About security. Security.
Dogs.
Dog.
Encompasses all those things.
I'm gonna circle dogs, we're gonna come on back to dogs.
You know, just we had joy.
Joy, joy, good one here, right?
Enough.
Enough, so, yeah. How about, with that contentment?
Acceptance.
Big one. For those of you that checked in as tired, how about would you like to have some rest and balance in your tests? Okay, so that's another. Okay. All right, so this is a pretty good list. It's out here. So what you've got up here is, they're considered our universal human needs. So I stole this activity years ago from another NBC trainer who's done this all over the world, and I've done this, I don't even know how many times by now. And it's true, no matter where you go, no matter who you ask, when you say, what do you want in your most perfect world, we always come up with we generate the same list every time. This is what actually unites us as human beings. These are the things we all want as human beings, right? So there's a few very key things here to talk about though. One is, if this is what we want, and then, you know, somebody says something that we don't enjoy, we do this. By doing this, then we get this. You see that we're like, we're missing the mark, right? Like we're doing all those things, but it's not actually even getting us close to what we all human beings say that we want in our life. And you know, there's probably good reasons for that. It's probably got a lot to do with the way our brains have evolved over time, right? You know, back in caveman days, we had to. It's like a form of fight, flight, freeze. The FU thing, right? It's today's form of fight, flight, freeze. Back in the day, you needed that. Nowadays, you don't really, now we have a much more evolved brain, honestly, right? So we don't really need to resort, but it's like our brain is having to catch up to the rest of us, or maybe the other way around. So the other thing that's really key here is in NBC, we differentiate between what is a need and a strategy. So needs are something that everybody in the world can agree upon wanting. Everybody wants safety, everybody wants kindness, everybody wants peace, fun, enough, understand, right? Anybody in here doesn't want those things? So that's how we know it's a need, universal human need. Strategies are ways to get our needs met. When we're arguing, we usually argue at the strategy level. So one of the very key concepts here is probably the number one takeaway from Martha Luther. He has a ton of great quotes. All conflict is a tragic expression of unmet need. You can think of any conflict that you're having in your life right now, and you can trace it back to a need. But the thing is that we never learn this. We've never learned this, and we've certainly never learned to communicate. We've never learned to communicate when we're in an argument with someone. Oh, it's about this need. Most of us aren't even tracking that it's about a need. If we're not tracking, we get caught up in the strategy, right? And that cell connection thing that we did when we first started out, here's why it's very critical. Because when you can close your eyes and you can notice your internal sensations, and you notice there are certain things, maybe you're not feeling so that you're not enjoying the feelings you're having. They're the feelings on the bottom part of the list that was handed out to you. All that is ding, 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 you've got a need that's not being met right now. That's all, it's your body system trying to tell you, you do not have a need being met right now. Look at that list, you have a list right now. Can I figure out which need this is about? Because that's what I ultimately want to be able to communicate to someone. But most of us aren't even, we're not even tracking that. Maybe it's giving us this language or this awareness. All complicated, tragic expression of an unmet need. And we differentiate between need and strategy. When we fight, usually fighting at the strategy level without even having the awareness of need. So I have circled dogs, sorry to say, because dogs are not a universal human need. I know that's probably mind-blowing to some. Really, it's kind of mind-blowing to me. I'm a dog person too, so I get it. Okay, but not everybody in the world needs dogs. Actually, no, the dogs, no, but see, the dogs are strategy. This is strategy. What needs do dogs help you? Okay, so joy, love, fun, kindness,
Respect.
many things. So, but we're arguing about how you go now, we're not arguing about man. I just, it's a strategy for love, right? See, we mix all of that up together, together. So being able to make this distinction can be a huge game changer for us. And again, I want to reiterate, this is just a little piece. You're just getting a teeny bit of what it's about. Okay. Another major concept that I want to talk about is before you know, and I'm going to probably get a few volunteers here too, but before you knew NBC, you probably only had one or two ways to respond if somebody said something that you don't like. So in NBC, we call that having your jackalers. Jackalers. So for instance, somebody says something that you don't like, you're late, you're always late. You've got your jackal ears on and you're pointing outwards to somebody. What might be your response if somebody says you're late, you're always late?
No, not.
No, I'm not. What's your problem? Why are you always on my case? Right? So someone says you're late and all of a sudden you're kind of turning it back on them. Right? You blame me, I'm gonna blame you right back. Right? You get on my case, I'm gonna get right on your case.
What are those ears called again?
Jackal,
Jacket.
jackal, like a jackal animal, like
Yeah.
low to the ground,
Like
predatory,
the
they
day of
bite
jack.
cats. Okay, so these are your jackal ears. And if you are if this is your MO, somebody says something you don't like and you blame them right on back, what emotion do you get to live from? Anger. You get to live from anger. Okay, that kind of sucks, okay? You get to live from anger. Or somebody says something you don't like, you're late, you're always late, you've got your jackal ears on and they're pointing inward. Any idea what you might be thinking or saying to yourself in a moment like that?
What does,
But, so that,
You're blaming yourself.
yeah, you're blaming yourself. No, what's wrong with me? Can't ever get my act together, you know, it's right, you know, I'm just the biggest slapper, right? So if you do that, somebody blames you, but you blame yourself, what emotion do you get to live from then? Guilt, shame, sadness, depression, that's what you get, right? And Marshall, who developed NVC, said many of us were ambidextrous with our ears, right? Somebody says something we don't like, we snap at them and then we're down on ourselves. You know, we snap at them, yeah. And every time I get to this, I see a lot of head shaking, like people really can relate to this. This is how it is. This is all that we've ever learned. It's like almost like in our DNA, honestly, it's in our DNA. So now, as you start to learn NVC is known as giraffe language, as corny as that might be, okay? Giraffe's like this really tall animal, right? It's got far vision. It's also supposedly the land mammal with the largest heart. It's a heart-based language, okay? So now someone says something you don't like, you're late, you're always late, and you've got your giraffe ears on, because that's what we're trying to do with NVC, start to translate everything into giraffe. Any idea what you might be thinking in a moment like that? They're pointing inward right now.
what does this person want or need?
Oh, well,
What do they need?
that would be this. That's pointing out, okay? But yeah, first
Pointing in.
pointing in is, what do I need? Pointing in is, remember the whole thing, like, ooh, I'm noticing, I feel angry inside, I feel embarrassed, whatever, you're having one of those feelings that are on the bottom part of that sheet. Somebody just said that, that's because you have a need that's not being met in this moment. That's all that is, it's your body system trying to say, need not met, pay attention, this is about a need not met, right? So now you're like, oh, he just said that, I didn't like it. What is that? It's about a need for understanding. Maybe it's a need for kindness. I didn't like the way he just said that. Kindness is coming up for me right now, right? But we don't do that, we do this. You know, God forbid we actually like pay attention and notice this is about a need and try to communicate that, right? And then ultimately where we want to go with NVC is somebody says something you don't like, you're late, you're always late, but you got your, which by the way, giraffe in is called self-empathy. That's being able to give yourself empathy. This is empathy, right? Someone says something you don't like, you're late, you're always late. Rather than go to the blame game, you're like, oh, you're translating. Oh, he's just trying to tell me a need. He's just really crappy at it. Right? He's just trying to tell me a need. What could it be, the need that he's trying to say, but he's not saying the need? It's your deal. Once you know this, start to translate, just like you would translate, you know, English to Spanish, same thing. All that stuff they're saying to needs. That's all we're trying to do here. So those are some of the very key concepts of NVC. I would love to practice this with a few people, if you're willing, okay? So anybody willing, I would love to have at least 4 people. 4 people, all right, that 1, 2.
I'll do it because Kate's looking
Okay, we need one more.
feel what she's saying.
One more.
That means you have to get it front.
Yeah, probably would be better. I already know how to do this. So I should. Well, come on up. Let me get my 3 folks. Come on up. Just stand right here. It's better. It's great. If you mess it up, you're learning. Oh, actually, we need one more and, Jake can grab your.
Jake just, we did like a bidding, you know, he raised his finger, like said, pick me. No.
All right, we need one more.
You want me to do it?
You're sitting on the back row.
Get extra points.
All right. Okay, so, Judy, you can help me with saying mean things. Okay. Okay, so Judy's gonna deliver, or I will deliver, or Don for that, will deliver a hard to hear message. Okay, and then we're just gonna take turns with different years. I'm gonna tell you which years I want you to respond with. Okay, I'll have them on. You guys right now, you're gonna need this, right? Okay, go ahead, deliver a hard to hear message. Yes, and remember what you say, because you can say it each time.
Okay. You're so inconsiderate. You just don't even like clean up your room and you're just so mean and stupid and.
Okay, so I said after you, you have your jackal on, but how would you respond? You're gonna hear blame back.
You're rude as well. Why are you coming in?
Okay, deliver it again.
You're so inconsiderate and you don't even clean your room and you just make me so angry.
And you have to correct, no, you have jackal on pointing inward.
What does that mean? Somebody needs something.
Blame,
Like,
you're gonna hear blame.
well, I guess didn't do a good enough job, did I?
Come on, you can do better than that.
Okay, I'll try again.
No,
That's fine. Okay, deliver it.
okay, you're so inconsiderate. You don't clean your room. You just make me so mad.
So if somebody said that to you, but you got your giraffe ears on and they're pointing inward. So what are you feeling and what might you need if someone were to say that to you? And you might need your list.
Well, I might be mad, I might be sad,
And then what
I might be confused because.
what need might you have?
He's actually neat for you.
No. Well, being,
You have a need for well-being, maybe
community belonging.
belonging. It could be anything, just so you start going there. Okay, now deliver it.
You are so inconsiderate. Your room is a mess and I'm really upset with you.
And now you've got your giraffe ears on and they're pointing outward. So you're gonna hear
What
the
a-
speakers feeling.
What
What
am I?
makes you feel that? So maybe if she's tired, she needs help, she might need more help, support, okay, yep, just some validation. Yeah, maybe some appreciation, exactly, okay, let's. Okay, let's switch now. Okay, now deliver it a different message.
Oh, okay. What's another good one? You know, you really drive awfully and you scare me a lot and I don't think you should be on the road.
So you're gonna hear blame.
Good to my husband.
Hear blame and blame back,
Okay.
note the other one.
You think that I'm a bad driver, you're even worse. I saw you in the car the other day, and you almost killed somebody.
Now, deliver it again.
Okay.
You're gonna-
You're a horrible driver and I don't feel safe with you and you make me so mad.
Okay, hear blame and blame yourself.
Jeez. I can't do anything right. I can't please her no matter what I do. Even my driving is just, oh.
You're a horrible driver and I'm scared to death and you shouldn't even be on the road.
So if she were to say that, and you have your giraffe with you, you're gonna listen for your own feelings, your own needs. What might you be feeling if someone were to say that to you? What might you need? So that's a whole lot of words. All you're doing here is thinking, what am I feeling? What may you feel? Someone said, look at the list.
You're a horrible driver.
I might feel sad. Might feel sad. And helpless,
Discouraged.
discouraged, and what might you need? What might be some of the needs?
Like some structure and some.
Okay,
And some.
okay. Could be a lot of it, exactly, okay? And last but not least, you're gonna have your drivers on pointing out. The other way.
You're a horrible driver, I'm scared to death of road, and you should not be on the road.
Maybe just a lot of stress or anxiety.
She's feeling a lot of stress and anxiety. What might her need be?
Some sort of comfort, maybe reassurance.
Maybe some reassurance, maybe safety.
Safety, yeah.
Safety, the plenty there. Medication can get you some of those needs, right? So you know the difference here. Okay, all right, thanks you guys. We're gonna debrief, we can debrief back to your.
Jake has to be curious. Drive.
Question.
Before you go though, can you just say, what did you learn by doing? What was the takeaway? What's the point of
It's
it?
easier to do the jackass.
Yeah.
To me, that's easier, it's much more difficult to think about, because I think that's how most of us operate.
Right.
Rather
That's
than really thinking, how am I feeling, what are they feeling? Although for me, it's easy to feel like something's wrong, not wrong, they're not having a good day. So usually when that happens, I try to figure out what's wrong and how I can help them, but I rarely do it to myself.
okay, yes, it is interesting.
Yeah.
You said two things there that I just want to reiterate before you leave. Two things. One is, and I'm guessing this is the way for most of you, like when you had the jackal years, you were like, oh, God, I can do this, you know, I can jackal, no problem. I can blame myself, no problem. Right? And the other one, when you get the draft years, you're like, this is so awkward. I don't usually move it. But I also heard you say that you tend to do, you do tend to go into trying to figure out what's going on with others, but you don't really do it for yourself. And I have noticed that over years, different people, you know, it either comes real easy to think a need for another person and then not for themselves at all, or vice versa. Like you tend to have a little tendency with ease one way or the other, right? So just start to notice that. But mostly everybody says, oh, the jackal thing, I like the jackal thing, I'm used to it, you know, and the higher. Yeah, we're used to it, right? Such a strange thing, but thank you.
Thank you. You're recording this for.
We'll put it on our YouTube channel for anyone who wasn't able to come. But I can cut it. It's great extrapolate.
Thank you. So any other takeaways, anything else about that? And I think she pretty much hit the main points, right? But it's usually quite, a big aha. Oh, look at that, it's just, my mind doesn't go there at all. So those are some of like the very basic concepts of NVC. Again, there's so much to this, you know, I don't have my PowerPoint, so I usually show you like, there's a whole dance floor and each concept is a lesson unto itself, and putting it together is a whole nother thing. Because one of the things that I'll just say that we learned with the empathy process is that when you're in an argument with someone, we tend to want to get our point across, right? You know, we want to be heard. We're in an argument. That's what our ultimate goal is, like, to be heard and have some understanding. But NVC kind of turns that on its head because you almost have to do like what is counterintuitive. Like we all talk about being able to hear first, but it's very hard to actually do it. So one of the things that we do in learning it is literally practice how to give empathy and to know that if you can't give empathy, if you can't lean in about someone else's needs, it's just because you yourself are needing the empathy. So we have structured in the process to make sure that you get empathy, so that then you have more space to actually hear other. So there's a lot to this. Kate wanted me to mention some of the places that I'm doing the work. So my company is called the Bigbie Method, and we are working in schools. I've been working actually with Success Academy and Second Chance here. Those are the schools, if you're not familiar. Success Academy is a school that serves any kids that are 2 or more years behind grade level. And Second Chance, they're co-located, they're on the same ground. Second Chance is a school that serves all the kids that are expelled from any of their home schools. So these are, quote, some of the toughest kids in our community. And this year, their principal, who's been tracking my work for quite a long time now, has declared their school is an NVC school. They're doing self-connection when the kids come in the morning to log onto their computer. The first thing they're doing is self-connection and stating what they're feeling, what their needs are in the moment. That information gets cast out to the grown-ups on the campus. The grown-ups themselves, every period is supposed to be putting up right now I'm feeling, and it's because of my needs for so-and-so. So there's a lot of clarity on where everybody is emotionally every second of the day.
That's huge. I just have to say that, can you imagine if all schools did that? I volunteered there, and just the idea they could come in and say if something went wrong, you know, the night before, that morning, and then the teachers have.
They have the awareness of it, yes.
It's amazing.
Well, and also they have empathy built in, so that what we used to do at Community Connections is, you know, I used to say to the kid, if you can't be here, if you can't be present because something's going on, just raise your hand and say you need to get empathy. Somebody will step out. And there were many a times when I get PO'd, because, you know, there are some challenging kids in that group, right? Or challenging grown-ups sometimes too. And sometimes I would say, you know what, I need empathy right now. Can anybody here give me some empathy, right? And mostly the kids would be like, yeah, I could give you some empathy, Miss Cindy, right? And I would step out, get empathy from the kids, step back in. They could see how it changed me. So we're just modeling for them. We don't model enough for our kids about being emotionally vulnerable with them. Like we're kind of like, oh no, that's not a cool thing. We think it's gonna not allow us to have safety, when in actuality, it's how we have safety. So we're doing a lot of work at Success Academy and Second Chance. The empathy process is completely built in now to when there's issues, and they have to like deal with fallout. NBC is front and center with everything that they're doing. We also trained probably about 120, give or take, teachers in Leon County schools in the last year and a half. So we're planting seeds everywhere. School of Arts and Science also was trained this year. Jefferson County Schools was trained this year. So we're beginning to plant seeds in the different schools. You know, it's very huge. It's connected to the poems, right? Because these kids, as you'll learn if you read the book, it's not just these kids, it's everything you're seeing is trauma response. That's all this is trauma response. It's being just taken in incorrectly, right? And you know, one interaction can make all the difference in the world, either going north or south. Like, I don't know if anybody here has heard of the school to prison pipeline, right? But the school to prison pipeline is the whole, you know, phenomenon of that kids that get in trouble in school that are getting suspended and expelled, which, by the way, there was a recent report in the last 3 years about, you know, who's doing all this gun violence in our community, right? The sheriff's office put out this huge research paper, and they interviewed all the people that are sitting over in the Leon County Jail, like the ones that did all the shooting. Like, who are you? What's your background? You know, and what do they find? I mean, this is not you know, like huge science, right? But what they found is like, these are the kids that have been expelled and suspended from school, right? It's just those same kids, they're out on the streets, they're into this kind of stuff right now. Well, what happens now at Success Academy, excuse me, because I know I'm in a chapel, but when a kid, I have evidence that says to a teacher, F you, back in the day, that would land you out of school, right? Like that now the teachers know, oh, this is trauma response. Oh, pull my NBC still here. Oh, I'm gonna go, this teacher literally, I think this example's in the book. She said, the kid basically, this kid came into her class. He was seemingly not in a good mood. She went up to him to see how she could assist him, and he said, could you kindly get the F out of here, he said to his teacher, right? So she was like, okay. She went down, she sat on her hands, she was nervous from the situation. She gave herself some empathy. There's a way of doing that, she learned, right? Figuring out what her needs were, taking guesses internally what his needs might be. And then when she was finally able to approach him, it was all about giving the kid empathy first. We don't do that. We usually correct them, explain, we do all these other conversation responses. We learn about this in NBC as well. But we do not just listen and take guesses at the needs. Kids are mind-boggled when you do that. They don't even know where to go when you start to. So when you said that, was that about needing, what was that? What was that? Were you needing some space in that moment? Like, people don't know how to respond when you approach them with needs guesses, which is what's actually going on for them, right? So, they ended up having this amazing conversation, but that would have been another kid suspended in any other situation. So, my game plan is to get as many adults, especially in our school system, schooled up on these processes as possible, so that you have less feeders into that school to prison pipeline, right? That's the game plan here. I also do train in business and organizations. We've done it in many companies. And my intro class is also, it's available to just anybody. It's online. So anybody in the world, I have people all over the world that are able to take it now. Oh, and one other place that we're making a little dent here is the Council on the Status of Men and Boys, which is the council that has come together again to deal with the gun violence. See, we're training the people that are on the front lines in NVC skills as well. And when you learn NVC, it's like you get double the bang for your bucks, right? Because you're learning the skill, but you're getting support. You can't do it without the two come together. You can't give empathy unless you're filled up, right? So those people that are on the front line, they need to get empathy themselves for the things that they're seeing and the experiences that they're having, so that they have more resource when they go into those places. Now they have more resource and they have the skill, they have the language, they have the knowledge on how to do it. So we've trained those people, and we're continuing to work with those people so that they have the resources. It's my way of hopefully gifting from, an arm's length away at this point, providing people with support out in our community. So
Podcasts.
Hmm?
Podcasts.
Oh, I have a podcast, if anybody, it's all about connection, and BC with Dr. B. You can find it on all the usual places, and people really like it from what I hear. So I see there's a question here and a question back here.
What is your definition of trauma?
Oh, that's a good question. It's a personal thing, right? And the average childhood experience study is the one that I usually go with. Have you heard of average childhood experience? So it was done in the early 1990s. They did it with a sample of like 17,000 folks that was supposedly representative of the United States. And they asked people 10 things. Did any of these things happen to you when you were a child, right? So you think of the usual things like, sexual abuse, physical abuse, neglect. But they had things in there like watching your mother be beat, divorce, living in a household with where there's substance abuse, right? Anything that puts your brain into a place of having to be on heightened alert and you can't get out of that. So you're in a place of like constant alert for safety. Your amygdala gets triggered and stays in that loop far more than somebody that hasn't had those kinds of things occur to them. So what they found when they did that study is it's really 2/3. 2/3 of people have had at least one of those things happen to them from the ages of 0 to 17.
0 to 17.
0 to 17. That's not even including after 17, right? Because 0 to 17 is formative, right? It's very formative in the way that your brain's responding.
You can take the test too, it's online.
Yeah, it's called the Adverse Childhood Experience Study. And what they found is that, you know, they were really looking at it to see, like, depending upon your score, so you get a score from 0 to 10, right? 0, you're one of the lucky ones, you didn't have any trauma growing up. 10, all those things happened to you. And what they were able to do is they were able to correlate, depending upon your ACE score, what kinds of physical and mental ailments you would have over the course of your life.
What is it called again?
Adverse childhood experience, ACE. Yeah,
Just 10 questions.
So I was just thinking about, with marginalized population, with the disability community in their life, and language is really something. So on the other side of this, I'm just curious, you know, your take from a good life, you know, individual with disabilities, they get talked to so often way. A lot of times, you know, it's unintentional. Like they can be hurtful and that kind of thing. So I'm wondering, like, in terms of your program, what do we, is it a different message with people that are going out there, educated a little bit or better problem on the skill? What about for the population generally sort of victimized? Does that make sense? I mean,
what I think I'm hearing you say is, you know, the population that you've been working with, they are hurt, you think more often, right? Yeah, they talk as if they're lesser than, or that they're not understanding or something like that.
Correct. Is there, what is the message to those guys?
To the individuals with disabilities? Yeah, I mean, I think there is no message, there's listening, right? There's listening, and I think NBC is the great equalizer, I believe. You know, the people that were in Community Connections, there are 3 people here that were in Community Connections with me. It was a very spiritual experience to be a part of that, because it didn't matter how old you were, you know, whether you were on the south side or north side, whether you had a disability, it didn't matter. It gave us a language that allowed us all truly to hear each other without judgment. Back to the definition of connection is being able to be seen, heard, and valued without judgment, right? One thing I was not able to get into tonight, because there's so much to this, there's a whole piece of the NBC dance floor that's about when you're speaking or when you're listening, to speak in observational language as opposed to evaluative language. And most people have no idea how much evaluation is in. Like, you could just say to someone, you know, you're late, you're always late. Very benign thing, so to speak, you know. That's a judgment. That is a judgment. And if you say that to somebody that has had trauma, 2/3 of us, more than likely you're gonna have a fight, flight, freeze response, right? So what you learn in all of this is how to be very mindful of the words that you're choosing and how you're expressing things. And yeah, I mean, I think it's the great equalizer. I think it could probably be miraculous in those kinds of circumstances, is my guess. Especially for the people that are working with the folks, that they start they start being mindful and have tools on how do you have a conversation that is power sharing. That's what this is. Yeah. Any other questions, comments?
I have one more. So you're talking about, you know, using language that's non-judgmental. How can that comport with, in the Myers-Briggs, there's a judgmental, like you're either judging or, let's see. You know what I'm saying, right?
You're one of the
4, like if you're either an introvert or an extrovert.
well, you know, it's funny because the whole Myers-Briggs thing, when you think about it, it's an evaluation.
Right.
Right? I mean, so I don't know how we would get away from all of that. But Marshall, who developed nonviolent communication, he's a clinical psychologist, PhD. He developed NVC because he was very disillusioned with the labeling that happens with typical psychology, right? And he thought that that actually does more damage than it does good. He was also up for the Nobel Peace Prize, by the way, just a side note, several times for his work all over the world. So, yeah, I mean, in NBC, you wouldn't even be getting into that. You don't, and it's not like you use NBC in every single thing. I think everything has its place, right? That probably has its place to be very helpful in certain ways. But when you're in a conflict with someone, using this structure and template it's a game changer. It really is.
So it's conflict resolution strategy.
Somewhat. I mean, you could use it in other places as well. I mean, if I have a friend that's got something going on and comes to talk to me, I might just have my direct ears on, right? Rather than, we do a lot of other things in those kinds of circumstances. We give advice, or we correct, or we relate, right? This is learning how to give empathy first in as many circumstances as possible, because that's what we're mostly. I've been doing this for many, many years, and it's very rare that somebody really doesn't want just the empathy. They don't even need the other thing. It's almost like we have our own wisdom. If we could get all this other stuff out of the way and someone just takes needs guesses, we're guided back to our own internal wisdom. So I think that's it. We have flyers about my book, and there's got your feelings and needs sheet. That, by the way, before you leave, that feelings and needs sheet, I highly recommend. I still have it in 4 places in my life. Okay, I still have it. All these years in my purse, in my car, not at my bedside anymore. But I used to have it by my bedside and at my desk. So if anything, the takeaway from tonight is you notice that you're upset about something, grab the list. Grab the list. And it's the first thing you do. I'm upset about something. What am I feeling? What am I needing? That should be like your first takeaway homework, and keep the list everywhere so you can start to train yourself to do that.
And hand it to your partner.
Yeah.
Or whoever you're in conflict with.
Yeah, and actually it's great. My husband's never taken my class, but he can give me empathy. All I have to do is say, I'm really upset. Can you look at this list and help me figure out what my needs are here? And he knows me better than anyone. So sometimes he's able to hone in on a need that I was totally not on my radar. And there's something about connecting with the need. You guys that have been doing it for a bit, there's something, just connecting with the need is like medicine in and of itself. I can't explain it. Having that kind of clarity and connection internally. It's like you're in alignment finally. Yeah.
Right on. Sid.
Yeah. Thank you very much for coming out and yeah, I'd love to see some of you in my intro class if you're drawn to it.
So thank you so much for coming, everyone. Thank you so much, Cindy, for sharing your work with us. We're grateful for you. We have some little treats outside and some of Cindy's books. So if you want to stop by and have a little nibble on your way out, drive home safely. And thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
I think Kat.
Up there.